day. Sometimes the spirit would threaten Philip. Other times he would stand there and just say his name, which was enough to scare him. That's fair. That scared me too.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter, the family found some troubling items in the basement. They discovered various mortuary toys, including a hoisting apparatus for coffins, a medical gurney, blood drains, and toe tags. Needless to say, after finding these items, they found out their new home had formerly been a mortuary. That's scary. This is where things started getting really spooky really fast. So spooky, in fact, that many of you, this story might sound very familiar, as it is the home that inspired the successful movie A Haunting in Connecticut, which came out in 2009, and the subsequent sequels. It was also dramatized in episodes of the television series A Haunting, Paranormal Witness, and Mysteries at the Museum.
They're getting a lot of coverage for this house.
A lot, yeah. And I own a few seasons of A Haunting, and this is on. It's a great show.
Excellent.
When the items in the basement were first discovered, the younger son, Bradley, climbed up onto the gurney, where he was spun around uncontrollably, which was later portrayed in the film. Members of the family began reporting to one another that they were hearing strange sounds, such as sounds of coffins being pulled upstairs.
How do you know what a coffin being pulled up the stairs sounds like?
I don't know. Some places said it sounded like they could hear it on chains getting pulled up or something. Maybe they just assumed it because it used to be a mortuary.
I know, but
they heard something and it was very scary.
Okay. But to assign it the sound of, it sounded like a coffin being pulled up the stairs. Have you ever heard a coffin being pulled up the stairs? I never have, so I wouldn't know what that sounds like.
Yeah, I have no idea. I wasn't alive at this time. Maybe, in the 80s I hear real wild, so. And they also reported sudden temperature drops in most of the rooms. And then they started seeing full apparitions of the dead.
Bum, bum, bum.
Da-da, da-da.
We might need better sound effects soon.
No, I'm happy with them. Mother Carmen Snedeker said of the spirits, they were incredibly powerful. One of them was very thin with high cheekbones and long black hair and pitch black eyes. Another had white hair and white eyes and was wearing a pinstripe tuxedo, and his feet were constantly in motion. Scary.
Where was he trying to go?
Dunno. Carmen also claims, as she was mopping the basement floor after moving all the embalming equipment, that the water she was mopping with turned blood red. The family also reported other phenomena, such as flickering lights, that would continue to flicker even after light bulbs had been removed, and dishes putting themselves away.
Helpful ghost.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I wish this ghost would come help me. Not really, though. I don't want that. I don't want that at all.
Good catch.
I don't want that. Okay. As things started to get progressively worse in the home, Philip also started to get worse. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia after talking about the spirits talking to him. His family said he became distant, dark, and violent after moving into the house. Despite having Hodgkin's lymphoma, he even ended up violently attacking his cousin, and due to that fight was taken by ambulance to a mental institution for 45 days. That's a long stay.
That's a 45-day placement. That's pretty standard.
45 days?
Yeah.
Scary.
Well, it's a standard evaluation. How long do you think he should have been there?
I don't know. I never met him. According to People magazine, Cameron remembers watching her son start to play cruel jokes on family members, like locking his younger brother in a chest and then forgetting that it ever happened. She eventually set him to live with other relatives, and he immediately stopped hearing the voices. And, a side note, he later grew up and had a wife and 4 kids, and very tragically, his lymphoma actually came back and did end up killing him, but it was much later in life. What I'm saying is, after he left this home, he led a very normal life.
Mm-hmm.
With Philip out of the house, Cameron claims the dark forces turned their attention to her 18-year-old niece. One night, my niece said to me, "Aunt Cameron, it's coming. Can you feel it?" She says her niece clung to her in fear. "I peeled her back," she says, "and I saw the impression of a hand going up underneath her night skirt. This is when I knew for sure that I was dealing with something supernatural." It has also been reported that the niece's bed would begin to levitate with her on it. She'd wake up and her bed was just floating.
Yuck.
Yeah. Scary.
Everything in that last part is yucky.
Yeah, for sure. So, the family felt the exact same way, Beth, and that's when they decided to call in the big guns. So they called in John Zaffis and Ed and Loraine Warren to come investigate.
Have we had a story tonight that hasn't talked about Ed or Loraine Warren?
Sure did. No one about the house. Exciting.
Oh, I'm trying to remember if they were mentioned in my,
They were not.
Opera house story.
Nope.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry. Compared to that house, the other cases I had been involved with were like dealing with Casper the Friendly Ghost, says renowned paranormal researcher John Zaffis, who spent the last 46 years investigating paranormal phenomena. One particularly memorable summer night, Zaffis claims to have seen a spirit descend the main stairwell and say to him, "Do you know what they did to us here?"
Is that the ghost equivalent of "Do you know who I am"?
I don't think so. I'm going to get what they do to him later. According to Cameron and Zaffis, 2 priests visited the home but became frightened and left. A third, whom they do not name, was finally able to rid the house of evil once and for all after a 3-hour exorcism was performed. According to Loraine Warren, when the exorcism happened, a crazy thing also happened that we still don't really understand, she said. There was a huge tree in the front of the house, and half of the tree, with no wind, broke off and fell onto the property. It's a case that was much, much scarier than any movie could ever be, Loraine said. She also said, in typical Hollywood fashion, the movie is about as far-fetched from the actual case as could be. The movie is very, very loosely based on an actual investigation, she said. So, one of the things she said she got from the home and felt when she was there, that in the mortuary, people were practicing necrophilia. That's what, like, screwed up all these dead bodies.
You mean they were doing the bodies?
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
What is wrong with people?
I don't know.
And how did they find that out?
I don't know. I don't think it was proven. Which brings me to my next point.
Okay.
So that next point is that there's a lot of controversy surrounding this case. Which, if you're an active paranormal investigator, you do know about this story and you do know about the controversy. If you are not, then you don't. And so I'm going to tell you all about it.
I guess we're going to find out which category I fall into.
So, the family claims that they didn't know about the home's prior use when they moved in that had been a mortuary. And they said that when they toured the home and things like that, they were unable to go to the basement because there was like construction stuff going on in the home, so it was like blocked off. They just couldn't get to it. That's why they didn't go down there and find all that stuff till after they moved in, right? But the landlord said that's absolutely completely false and that they absolutely didn't know about it before they moved in.
I would think that that has to be in the real estate disclosure.
This is 1986.
1986 isn't that long ago.
Yeah, but that stuff didn't start happening until much later.
What?
Real estate disclosures.
Okay.
It's been recent you even had to tell people if a murder took place.
Okay. But I suppose that would have been incumbent on the buyer to do their due diligence and, look into stuff like, has this ever been a funeral home?
Well, not even that. They didn't buy the house. They were renting it. So yeah, that's weird. The home was a duplex, and no other occupants experienced any supernatural interference with their housing situation during the time the Snedeker family was there. So it was like just on them. Yeah. So in 1992, there was an article because, whenever Ed and Loraine Warren would show up anywhere, the place would get a lot of attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they really kind of publicized this home a lot, which is why much later, and years later, it became very famous, and they did all these movies and stuff about them. But someone found out about it in 1992, and in that article, the Archdiocese denied any and all claims that an exorcism had been authorized for that home. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean an exorcism definitely didn't happen, or did an exorcism just happen off the books?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right. Many also doubt the story due to the fact the family had lived in the home for many, many years. And many claim the son, Philip, was responsible for much of what occurred in the home at that time due to his severe mental health condition.
Mentally ill kid dragging coffins up and down the stairs and somehow levitating his sister's bed.
His cousin's bed.
His cousin's bed.
After he had already moved out.
I mean, clearly he rigged it with some sort of pulley system,
yeah,
right? I mean, just to freak her out in the middle of the night. Isn't that what cousins do to each other?
You all freaked me out so much for it. Okay. The author hired to write the original book, A Haunting in Connecticut, for the Warrens and the Snedekers, this guy, Ray Garton, eventually went on the record to say that not only was he giving conflicting stories from the Snedekers, he was given directions to ignore those conflicts and sensationalize the story. So that's pretty damning.
Yeah.
But they always say, I do know this case, and I have read over it a few times before. And it always says that he says they say that, but you never see where he says it, right? Like, where's the record? It always says he said on record, but like, where's that record?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. According to the current owners of the Southington home, Susan Terada Smith, the true story is that the house is not haunted and never was. She said, "We've lived in the house for 10 years. Our house is wonderful. This is all Hollywood foolishness. The stories are all ludicrous." So, that's our take.
Well, there was that off-the-books exorcism that happened.
Possibly, yeah.
And what does Tenny say? Sometimes it's the people that are haunted.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in one of the articles I read, they have this at the bottom of it, and I thought it was so funny I had to include it. Know before you go.
Oh. And what should we know?
There is no good place to park at the house. You can park in the town and walk down if you want, but it is a private residence. Do not trespass. Only observe from the street.
Well, that seems like very reasonable advice. Similar to if you're going to go into the Union Cemetery after dark, you should ask permission from the local police.
Okay, and yeah, that's the story of the Snedeker House, the true story.
Oh, the true story.
The maybe true, maybe whatever. You know.
It's based on a true story.
It's the story the movie was based on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they Hollywooded it up a bit.
Gotta get that Hollywood money.
Right. Well done.
Thanks, you too.
Good job, Connecticut Stories.
Yeah, Connecticut.
All right, so what else do we have for tonight?
Well, we got a whole bunch of drive-by ghostings, one of which, ironically,
is from Connecticut.
My goodness, this is our first Connecticut drive-by ghosting, and it happened to come on Connecticut night.
So I take it you want to do drive-by ghostings first. All right. So this story came to us through the email, ghosthuntinginnewengland@gmail.com, and it just happened to show up yesterday. It did. It says it showed up yesterday. And I was very pleased to see it. So here we go from Night Trooper. Good morning, Amelia and Beth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Night Trooper. I have been enjoying your podcast for about a month now, and you two ladies rock.
Thank you.
I love the stories, the banter,
woo,
and please keep it coming.
Heck yeah, we will.
Not sure how this story will measure up, but hey, here it goes.
Let's hear it.
First off, I am a 19-year vet of the Connecticut State Police.
God bless
you. And this occurred on duty. I would say this happened in 2005 or 6 when I was working midnight shift. We here in Connecticut do not have partners and ride alone in our cruisers. It was a normal midnight shift, and I was dispatched to a residential alarm in the central part of Connecticut where my patrol was. This area is very country-like, not a lot of street lights, and generally quiet at night. On my way to the alarm, and in an area I was very familiar with, I came to a stop sign, which was in a spot that I always found odd as to why the town highway department placed it there. While at the stop sign, I looked to my left and observed a white male standing in the doorway to a house smoking a cigarette. This man looked at me and nodded his head as he took a drag from his cigarette. I didn't really pay much more attention to the male since I was processing where I was going and continued on to the alarm. I went to the alarm, which is only a mile or two up the road, and came back to the same stop sign within 15 minutes, and the male was gone, and honestly I wasn't surprised. I left the area and completed my shift. A few days later I was talking with a coworker, and I mentioned seeing the male in the doorway smoking the cigarette. My coworker kind of looked at me sideways and asked what I just said. I again told him the story, which to me didn't seem overly exciting until he asked for clarification as to which house I was talking about. I again told him that it was the house at the intersection on this particular road. At this point is when my generally steely nerves tingled, because he told me that house was abandoned, and that the male who had lived there was a chain smoker who had committed suicide in that house about 1 year before. I began describing to him the male, and he kept just saying, "Yep," to each description. I tried to remember, which wasn't all that much, other than his build and height. After that, I drove by that house many times over the next few years, and never did see him again, but I thought I'd share it with you both. Thank you again for your wonderful show, and keep up the great work. Night Trooper.
You are welcome. And what a great story. That was awesome.
That was a good story.
That was